Hey, what's up guys? And for today's video, I wanted to go over the format for Post-Bologna and talk about the implications, how it's going to change, etc, etc. So obviously, Bologna just happened this weekend. Vanquish Soul ended up winning, and I'm sure to some that's a surprise, but to others, it was probably expected. Vanquish Soul is a deck, and K9 decks in general, have been seeing a bit more play the past few weeks because of the rise of Dracotail. As the format's shifted more from Mitsurugi to Dracotail, more people are trying to play decks that counter Dracotail. And one of the decks that has the best Dracotail matchups, one of the best Dracotail matchups, is Vanquish Soul K9. Vanquish Soul K9 has a good Vanquish Soul Dracotail matchup for a couple reasons. Number one, you can play through their end board of Engine decently well. A lot of the traps don't really affect you that much. Like you can play through Horn, you can play around Horn, you can play around Flame. Obviously, Vanquish Soul doesn't play that many trap cards. Or spell cards. Like we look at like the list I got first place, right? And take a second to load. Look at this first place Vanquish Soul list. Like, I mean, he played an okay amount of spells, three case, but still like 30 monsters in the deck. So when you look at it like that, but you can actually play through it pretty fine and double loop this to help play through like Sting. So the deck actually doesn't really care about the Dracotail on board that much. You can play strong non-engine versus the deck. Like for example, Ozuna, which I do think is a bit overrated against the deck. I think there are ways to beat it with Engine and Holy Sue, etc. Oh, excuse my phone. So yeah, Vanquish Soul saw a lot of play. Dracotail was still like the most played deck in Swiss and Top Cut, I believe. Well, in Swiss, we don't have the full Top Cut deck breakdown, but definitely at least in Swiss. And then you have a deck like Maliss. Maliss, I think it's still really strong overall. Maliss doesn't have the best Vanquish Soul or matchup, I will say that. It can be a little bit like rough to go second sometimes versus that deck, just because a lot of the non-engine you want to play like Bestials don't really affect the deck that much. And Vanquish Soul, when they open well, they can just play through like a bunch of hand traps super easily, but it'd be like that sometimes. Also, Maliss generally doesn't have a super high play rate. Then, where I think the format's going to shift is Yummy. So obviously, like Vanquish Soul is seeing a lot more play now, and one of the decks that has a really good Vanquish Soul matchup is Yummy, specifically Pure Yummy. Mitsurugi is like so-so, but Pure Yummy has a really good Vanquish Soul matchup. Pure Yummy's matchup against Dracotail is not that great, but I think you can build the deck to have an actually okay matchup. I think the matchup against Dracotail for Pure Yummy is a bit like overstated. People say, oh, the matchup's bad, like is Dracotail favored, and I do think it's Dracotail favored, but not that much. You have a lot of ways to you can actually deal with them, and even like when Yummy goes second, it really, if Dracotail doesn't have nib, but you can actually deal with the deck pretty easily with like your non-engine. So I think Pure Yummy has potential to see a ton of play. Mitsurugi is going to see a bit more play too, because like less Dracotail, or less hard counters rather. Like everyone's like moved Joel out of their main deck. Not everyone, but Joel is not seeing that much main deck play. And people aren't really like playing their deck to like beat Mitsurugi. Dark Roller's not really seeing much play because it's not that great into the other decks. So that's really good for Yummy and really good for Mitsurugi. I think Pure Yummy has a better Vanquish Soul matchup than Mitsurugi just because you play more non-engine. You don't play into Ozuna. You don't really have cards that lose like Ripper. So like going second, Pure Yummy is just straight up better, both engine and non-engine wise. Like if your opponent ends in like Ozuna, whatever through your hand trap, or Ripper, whatever through hand traps, I'd rather have Engage or something like that than a Habakiri, right? So I think Pure Yummy's matchup against Vanquish Soul K9 is actually really, really solid. And I think we'll maybe expect a bit more people to play Pure Yummy. But then if more people play Pure Yummy, then all of a sudden it's like, well, let me play decks that counter Pure Yummy. So I think we're in the part of the format now where the format's kind of defined, you know. We have like the top decks here. Like Lunalight is more so rogue, and the ryzeal decks are more so rogue. But we have like the top decks here. And this is more so like Pure Mitsu, which doesn't really see that much play unless you're like EU. I mean, I guess it's like the play rate is similar, but the top rate, conversion rate's like better for like Top Cut and EU. These are like the top 5 decks, I would say. Dracotail, Maliss, Yummy Mitsurugi, and Vanquish Soul K9. Or these seem like the top decks. And then you have like the rogue decks like Pure Mitsu, ryzeal Mitsurugi, and Lunalight. So this is what the format's gonna look like deck-wise. What is the format going to look like non-engine wise? Because like Vanquish Soul won, so are people going to change their main decks to beat Vanquish Soul? They're going to main deck Joel, etc. So starting off, I think Perulia, which I forgot to add it to the side deck, my bad. Perulia is a card that we saw a lot in like these like topping lists. Like a lot of people were siding to be Perulia, and Perulia, in my opinion, is the best hand trap against Vanquish Soul. At least like going second anyway. It's the best hand trap. Obviously going second. It's the best hand trap against Vanquish Soul because they have to like summon from hand multiple times to like give you disruption. It guarantee gives you value. It doesn't like conflict with some of your other non-engine like a Joel might be. Joel's still good versus the deck, but I think Purlia is just like the best card against K9 decks by far. So if you weren't playing Purlia before, you for sure should be playing Purlia now in your side deck. It's just like, it's a really good card versus Vanquish Soul. Next off, Joel. Some people were cutting Joel. Joel is weird because if you want to play Purlia and you want to play Meows and you already play Fula, are you going to play Joel too? But the issue with that is that Joel kind of conflicts with these cards. So you might just play different cards against the Vanquish Soul deck. And then, so I actually don't know if Joel is that great. I don't know. I don't think Joel's seen that much play. And because like to play Joel is mainly for like Mitsurugi. It's good against Vanquish Soul K9, but Purlia is also really good against that deck. And whereas like Joel is like the best hand trap against Vanquish Soul or Mitsurugi outside of like Fula. So I feel like Joel, if we're not expecting that much Mitsurugi, Joel's going to see a lot less play in the format. We're just going to see people playing like all the Charmies, and people are just going to play Meows instead of Joel because it can hit Maliss and Mitsurugi, and then it also doesn't conflict with like other Charmies potentially. So I think we're going to see like a more Charmy based side deck for sure. Imperm is a card that's going to see a lot of play because it's really good against the K9 decks. And you can side it in against Dracotail as well, so it hits multiple matchups. Some people were playing Veiler for the Dracotail deck, but Mirror Match specifically. But Imperm, while worse than the Mirror Match, is going to be a bit better if you play against like K9. Well, a lot better if you play against like Vanquish Soul K9. So we're going to see Imperm's going to be pretty popular, I'd say. Not in the main deck for most decks. I mean, for some decks in the main deck, but like if your deck doesn't play that much non-engine, then you're just gonna side it. I mean, like I think Pure Yummy should play it because when you look at Imperm, I mean, I want it against Vanquish Soul, I want it against Dracotail. Not really good against Mitsurugi, but I mean it's whatever. And against Maliss, it's like okay-ish. But I don't think Pure Yummy's gonna see that much play. But all these decks are like relatively close in representation. But if you're playing a deck that plays a ton of non-engine, then yeah, Imperm is like pretty solid. So Imperm, I think, is going to move up. Like, Imperm and Purlia are going to be the hand traps that see, like, a ton of play. Fawn and the Virtuous is something that we saw some Dracotail players start to cut from their decks. Just to play, like, more non-engine to respect the Vanquish Soul matchup. Although I think Fawn and the Virtuous is actually pretty underrated versus Vanquish Soul, I'm not going to lie. Going first, I think it's really good, because it kind of beats Azuna and Holy Sue. Holy Sue, they still get value out of it. It doesn't exactly beat it, but it helps you get some value through it. And and then Azuna, it does really well versus Azuna / Lupas as well. Even if they like hold it, you still can get value out of it because of Fawn like end phase plays. So I think Fallen is still pretty decent in the deck. Although the only thing is like going second against Vanquish Soul K9, it's not that great. But it's also a super flexible card. If you're expecting a lot of mirrors, I think Fallen's pretty good for Dracotail. But also, like I said, the format's looking a little bit more wide now. We have quite a few decks, so I can see people not playing it as well. For sure, I don't think it's a 3 of, but I think having the option, I would honestly, it's also weird because like I don't think just playing one is great because I don't think the play where you like go for like setting it off like Albion comes up that much to warrant the one copy, but potentially. With only 2 brand features, it's kind of rough. But yeah, so this is how I think the format's gonna look like right now. And it's kind of set in stone, to be honest. Like, it's just going to keep flip-flopping between event from event, which deck is the best pick out of these 5. Moving on to the next event, which is YCS Mexico, somewhere in Mexico, I don't know, in like a week or two. I think it's in a week, and then we have our multiple YCS in a week. I mean, Mexico YCS, I'm not expecting Maliss to see that much play. I'm expecting probably Dracotail to be the most played deck, and like Pure Yummy, and then like Mitsurugi, and then Vanquish Soul, or something like that. So this is what I would assume for this event. So like, for example, like, oh, also another hand trap I want to talk about, and sorry, I'm kind of rambling on, but Lancia. Artifact Lancia is a hand trap that, with people messing around with, because like, Maliss is seeing a ton of play, but Maliss didn't see that much success in this event. I mean, it got like, what, 2 in the top 8, which is pretty good, but I feel like it's still like, some people might try to drop it for like I said before, the K9 matchup is not amazing, and people might try to drop it for other decks, so I feel like Lancia, at least for sure for Mexico, you don't side Lancia. You just like side Meows instead. And yeah, something like that. And then for the remote YCS, I mean, that's going to be NA. I mean, so like, I feel like the representation will probably be something like this. Something like this. But for Mexico, it might be something like this instead. I thought Piriyumi's going to see a bit more play in Mexico than Mitsuyumi, but I could be wrong on that one. But, like, also, like, this is, like, Swiss representation, and, like, it's not really going to change that much. I think the biggest thing, before I wrap up today's video, I think the biggest thing when you're picking a deck for these next couple events, because the format is so diverse now, we have so many different decks, and because the format, like, is shifting so much, just making sure you play a deck that not only you feel comfortable on, but, like, is relatively consistent. Then you can do well with all these decks. You can make sure you have a deck that's like consistent at doing what it does and have a good like non-engine spread. Make sure you build your deck so you can handle all the different decks. Because you're not just going to play against one deck. You're not just only going to play against Dracotail. You're not only going to play against Vanquish Soul K9. You're going to play against all these decks, especially these 4. Well, at least these like 3. But yeah, so I think making your deck be able to deal with these from like the non-engine side, so like siding Perulia or siding cards for Vanquish Soul, respecting all these decks. If you respect them, then I think you can do well with any deck this format. But yeah, anywho, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. A little bit of a rambling video. I didn't really mean for it to be rambling. At first, I was going to do like a tier list type shit, but then I was like, low-key, I don't really need to do I was going to do like a tier list and like a hand trap tier list, like 2 separate videos, but I'm like, low-key, like, I don't need to do that. Like, I can do everything in one video. But yeah, anywho, hope you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And I'll start to upload some deck profiles in the next couple of days, how I would approach the decks post-ban list, or post YCS rather, with side decks too. But yeah, anywho, have a great day. Peace.